Coming up on Network Africa. Over 60 people missing in Mozambique boat capsize. The United Nations says the North Alliance Treaty may support troops fighting against militant jihadists in the Sahel. Kenya's foreign ministry says it will refuse to accept a court ruling on the maritime border dispute with Somalia. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. We begin in Mozambique, where more than 60 people, mostly children, are reported missing after the vessel they were traveling in capsized off the country's coast. According to the state broadcaster, the ship carrying people and goods left Nacala port for Member district in the northern Nampula province. It's believed that the accident was caused by bad weather, which affected the region. A team of health personnel, the police and local leaders on ground as rescue and search teams are also looking for bodies to ascertain the number of the victims. To politics now. Guinea's new Prime Minister Mohamed Begouvi has called for unity to ensure a smooth transition to civilian rule. Mr. Begouvi told journalists in the capital Conakry that his administration will be a government with a specific mission. Well, as Prime Minister, he will oversee the transition of the country to civilian rule following the overthrow of Alpha Conde's government in September by the Mamadi Doumbouya-led military junta, the National Rally and Development Committee. He has no previous governmental experience, but is said to be an expert in agriculture finance and spent a large part of his career in international organizations, such as the UN's International Fund for Agriculture Development and the African Union. Morocco's King Mohammed has named a new government after last month's election, keeping the foreign and interior ministers in place, but appointing Nadia Feta Alawi as finance minister. In a monarchy where the king has final say on all major decisions, the new government's main task will be to implement a development model that the palace has commissioned, aimed at reducing inequality, cutting poverty and fostering growth in the country. Aziz Akanuch, appointed Prime Minister after his Liberal RNI party came first in the election and has formed a coalition with the Liberal PAM and the Conservative parties. The three parties command a comfortable majority in the parliament with a combined 270 seats compared to the 198 needed to pass legislation. The new Finance Minister, Alawi, who was Tourism Minister in previous government, will be one of 7 women in the cabinet, including the former mayor of Marrakesh. To security matters now. The NATO alliance is studying options to offer support to troops fighting against militant jihadists in the Sahel region. UN Chief Antonio Guterres made this known, saying the move is the most effective approach to provide sustainable and predictable support to the joint force. The force he was referring to is made up of 5,000 troops in the Sahel, drawn from Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Chad, and Burkina Faso. The US has so far rejected the plan that has been supported by France and other African countries. The United Nations is calling for more international support for the soldiers in the Sahel region. Jihadist groups have been staging attacks in that region, targeting civilians and soldiers. Well, jihadist militants in the volatile borderlands between Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger have resorted to abducting or assassinating community leaders, state officials and family members in that region in an Islamic State playbook strategy that researchers say helped give them control over large swaths of land.
Dusty camps like this one are home to thousands fleeing militant violence in Niger Republic. And amid the many tales of escape, a new pattern has emerged: the assassination of local leaders, including by groups linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. Village chiefs like 95-year-old Bubakar Lawi. For 55 years, he settled local disputes, collected taxes, and registered births and deaths in Chombangu. But early on November the 22nd, 2019, gunmen arrived, led him away, and shot him dead. His brother took over the role. A year later, he too was kidnapped. Lawi's son, Mumuni, formed a search party to find his uncle.
They left with him. They even started to beat him there because we saw blood on the spot. It was very early in the morning, at the time of the call to prayer around 5 a.m., when someone ordered the muezzin to stop the call because the chief of the village had just been kidnapped.
Mumuni fled Chombangu and has not returned for fear that he will be targeted, but his story is increasingly common. Since early 2018, jihadist groups have assassinated or abducted at least 300 community leaders, state officials, and family members in the volatile borderlands between Niger Republic, Mali, and Burkina Faso. Somalia Marsdo is the top official in Oualam, the town hosting the camp for displaced people.
The village chiefs are the extension of our administration. They represent the administration in their village. So by attacking the village chiefs, they are actually attacking the authority of the state.
Researchers say the targeted violence follows the same playbook that Islamic State militants have used in other parts of Africa and the Middle East. The impact is to weaken ties between rural communities and central government, helping militants gain control over large areas. But the Nigerian government says it is reclaiming zones near the Malian border. Interior Minister Al-Kachi Al-Hada said the terrorists are extremely weakened, and that's why they've changed their modus operandi.
The terrorists are extremely weakened, whether in Niger or Mali, and it is this weakening that also explains why they changed their ways of doing things. They had a certain moment in particular in 2019-2020, they had successes compared to our security forces. But since this date, we also changed methods and strategies.
Despite this assurance, some people are too afraid to go back.
Kenya says it will not recognize next week's expected ruling by the International Court of Justice on the maritime border dispute with Somalia. In a hard-hitting statement, Kenya's Foreign Affairs Ministry said the judgment will be the culmination of a flawed judicial process that was biased. Kenya withdrew from the hearing earlier this year, questioning the fairness of the process, which concerns a 62,000 square miles triangle in the Indian Ocean. The area is thought to be rich in oil and gas, and the dispute is at the heart of a diplomatic row between the neighbors. Somalia brought the case in 2014, saying the maritime frontier should follow on in the same direction as the land border, while Kenya argues that it has always been taken in a horizontal line from the point where the two countries meet at the coast. Or the ICJ is expected to deliver its judgment on October the 12th. Doctors and parents are still welcoming the news of a new malaria vaccine 2 days after the World Health Organization said the only approved vaccine should be widely given to African children. Well, Africa will start talks with the WHO about getting the first approved malaria vaccine to the continent as soon as possible. That's according to the African Union's top health official, amid the calls for funding for drugs beyond COVID-19. Experts say the recommendation is potentially a major advance against the disease that kills 250,000 African children each year. The development is already being hailed across hospitals and clinics on the continent.
That's way.
People are aware that malaria exists, unlike COVID infection. There are people that still they don't believe COVID infection exists, but malaria exists. If you go to the hospital, out of 10 patients, you see 5, 6 with malaria. And malaria is a disease that affects everybody, the rural area, the urban area, so the vaccine will be a welcome development.
If this vaccine, if they will begin to give out this vaccine, I think it will help a long way. It will also make parents to save money, especially me. Because if there is something that will help to prevent it, I think it will be better that way.
Yes, I'm excited to hear that the vaccine, malaria vaccine, is coming out. It will prevent us from taking malaria drugs every 3 months. So at least when the vaccine is out, we know that yes, we have something that is preventing us from taking drugs all the time.
As South Sudan prepares itself for its first ever elections expected in early 2023, civil society organizations have begun engaging with various independent electoral bodies in an effort to create awareness amongst themselves so that they can strengthen their voice and participation in a historic process that is already lagging behind. At a 2-day forum held in the capital Juba, participants heard that the civic political space is vital despite the challenges of the elections ahead.
If we don't have the laws, civil society organizations can positively influence political leaders and help communities to develop values of democratic life, tolerance, compromise, and respect for opposing points of view. Through various election-related activities, including civic and voter education, campaign monitoring, and electoral observation, civil society organizations will be instrumental to building awareness of the local communities over democratic ideals and values related to issues of transparency, credibility, fairness, fraud prevention, and the protection of political rights and civil liberties.
The Commission shall take necessary steps to ensure that all citizens, without discrimination, are able to exercise and enjoy their political rights, to nominate and be nominated for elections, and to freely express their will in a secret ballot. Very important. Everybody should vote, choosing his own candidate without interference.
For the first ever woman police commissioner at the United Nations mission in South Sudan, Olatolu Vuniwakwa is ending her tenure, but is said to be leaving behind a formidable legacy of leadership, empathy, and operational effectiveness. The commissioner led a team of UN poll officers drawn from 46 different countries and attributes her achievements to always encouraging this large and diverse component to play to their strengths.
Coming into this mission was really the biggest professional risk that I took. At the time I came, I was the acting assistant police commissioner back at home. And I had been trying to get into the United Nations peacekeeping mission. I felt at the time, as well back at home, I was also hitting the glass ceiling. So I knew I had to find my lateral exit as well. And United Nations was one of my, I kept my eye on it. Before I assumed the position of police commissioner, I was first an individual police officer. And I worked in the protection of civilian site. And I was in the site during the 2016 crisis. After the crisis in 2016, as I worked in the protection of civilian site, I noticed that the men were mostly in the sites, whereas women were going out to collect firewood, to get food. And I started to question, because from where I come from, that's not the culture. I feel emotional intelligence is something that we must really learn, and I have learned also in the mission, and it really is very prominent, and also particularly for us as women leaders. We have a lot of it, emotions, but how you use it to enhance your leadership ability is very, very important.
Still ahead on the program, our Africa Tech segment explores the benefits of Google's plan to invest $1 billion in Africa. Please stay with us. Welcome to our Africa Tech segment. Google says it plans to invest $1 billion in Africa over the next 5 years to ensure access to fast and cheaper internet, and will back startups to support the continent's digital transformation. The unit of U.S. tech company Alphabet Inc. made the announcement at a virtual event where it launched an Africa investment fund through which it will invest $50 million in startups, providing them with access to its employees, network, and technologies. In collaboration with non-for-profit organization Kiva, Google will also provide $10 million in low-interest loans to help small businesses and entrepreneurs in Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa so they can get through the economic hardship created by COVID-19.
Fintech, logistics, e-commerce, local language content. But again, we're not limiting ourselves to these verticals. We're really looking at this across a number of verticals. We're looking at areas that might have some strategic overlap with Google and where Google could potentially add value in partnering with some of these startups. We're expecting a 21% reduction in data costs. We're expecting 3 to 5 times faster internet speeds in South Africa and Nigeria, as an example. We're also expecting job creation. We're expecting about 1.7 million jobs to be generated across South Africa and Nigeria through both directly in the digital sector, but also in peripheral sectors.
Yes, I can see you very well, sir.
Well, joining us now is the Director of Government Affairs and Public Policy at Google Africa, Charles Murito. Thank you for joining us on Africa Tech.
Thank you so much, Laia, for having me.
Well, let me begin with this question. Is there a reason, these particular countries were picked to benefit from this investment? We have Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa.
Actually, the investment is not discriminating on only these countries. We're looking at investing across the continent. So, for instance, to date, we have invested in the certification of over 80,000 developers to get developer certification. And those developers actually cover every single country across the continent. When you take Equiano, for instance, we have already announced that Equiano is going to have landing branches across the continent, starting off with Nigeria, also going into St. Helena, Namibia, and also South Africa, where it will land in Cape Town. So we're looking at this as truly an African investment. There are certain things which are going to be specific to certain countries. For instance, the Kiva Fund, whereby we are going to partner with, we've partnered with Kiva, who are working with financial service providers across the 4 countries, Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. But we're looking at other elements which will span beyond the 4 countries.
Well, talk to us more about, how this investment plan will map out.
Yes, so there are a couple of key areas around the investment. The first one is around access. On the access piece, we have Equiano, which we've announced. And as I mentioned, that is going to have landing branches starting off from Portugal, coming through Lagos, down to St. Helena, to Namibia and Cape Town. So that's one key part. And the idea around the access and connectivity piece is so that we can be able to increase the speeds of internet, as well as see peripheral investment, because now the cost of data and internet actually drops. The second piece, which is anchored by the African Investment Fund, the $50 million Africa Investment Fund, is around spurring innovation. So we want to invest in startups and other companies that are really solving problems for the continent. So we believe that that is an area whereby Africans know what the challenges are across the continent, and therefore the startups and other companies that are there, driven by technology, we can help accelerate that. And then the last pillar is around renewing our commitment to drive nonprofit success. So we, in addition to the monetary investment in nonprofits, through our google.org $40 million investment, we see that we need to help in other elements such as ad grants, such as cloud services, etc., for these nonprofits so that they can be able to run more efficiently. So those are just 3 areas in terms of the initial start for this $1 investment. But as you said at the top of the announcement, is that this will span over the next 5 years. So you're going to see more announcements of other investments and more granularity over the next few months and into the next few years.
All right, now for Nigerian small businesses and Nigerian entrepreneurs, how in practical terms, how will they benefit from this? How much of the Google Pay is coming into Nigeria?
So in terms of the small businesses in Nigeria, there's a couple of ways that they're going to benefit. The first one is an initiative that we call Google My Business, which is really about bringing and getting businesses online. And on this particular piece, we help businesses create websites and start finding different marketplaces, leveraging those websites that they create. A really particular piece that's important on this is Market Finder. Market Finder is a tool that helps you market your services, not just within Nigeria specifically, but in any country across the world that can utilize those services that you have. And the best thing about this is that it also takes other elements such as helping you think through your logistics, think through your taxation, and other tariffs that you may need to deliver those services to those particular countries. In addition to that piece, and the digital skills and Google My Business, the other element is around Kiva. And on this particular one, we're going to be making an announcement over the next couple of months on 2 particular fronts. One, how much money is going to be coming into Nigeria specifically on the Kiva loans, low interest loans. And secondly, which financial service providers in Nigeria we're going to be working with who are going to be disseminating those funds to the SMBs in Nigeria.
All right, then we look forward to that announcement. Thank you so much, Director of Government Affairs and Public Policy at Google Africa, Charles Murito. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Layo. It's been a pleasure being here.
Africa is hungry for investments. That's the words of the former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo to investors at the Africa-Dubai Investment Summit taking place in Dubai. The former Nigerian president, who joined the event virtually, also cautioned attendees to beware of unscrupulous individuals. Our correspondent Mayowa Adegoke brings us more details in this report.
Investing in Africa is in focus at the first Africa-Dubai Investment Business Summit, and organizers are keen to get UAE-based money bags to pitch their tents on the continent.
We've noticed that in the past, we have people in Africa that need investors, but they don't know how to get that. And then people in Dubai that want to invest in Africa, but they don't know how. Now we are coming in as the middlemen.
The event is under the patronage of the private office of a sheikh in the Sharjah royal family.
For us, it's quite important, especially with our royal office, with His Highness Sheikh Ahmed bin Faisal Al Qasimi. We have such a diverse group of people under one office, and the reason for that is we go where our heart takes us, and usually it does take us to Africa.
Discussions range from digital banking, blockchain technology, to diplomacy and identity management. However, stakeholders here who have come from across the world are hoping for more than speeches.
We have what we call the deal room. Now, in the deal room, it's where you have the money bags and the businesses. So everyone can come, talk, eat, exchange business cards, but you do not have access to that deal room. It's exclusive.
Attending the event virtually is President Olusegun Obasanjo, whose remarks highlight some of the issues plaguing the UAE-Africa business relationship.
There has not been sufficient knowledge understanding, and interaction between Africa generally and the United Arab Emirates for business to be in a two-way direction. We also have real men and women of integrity, honest, and people that you can do business with.
Carlos Santos is on the lookout to invest.
We have the capacity to invest in Nigeria, for example, not against your assets, not against your shares that pertains to the project promoters, but against their capacity to generate liquidity and the existing liquidity that reflect their solvency to repay my money.
All agree that the youth and women hold the key to Africa's prosperity.
Sometimes these youths who have this innovation and this technology are not connected directly with the government.
There needs to be a special attention to women because they've been outside of the financial system for so long that we need to make sure that they're included and they're represented. Well, it appears this blossoming relationship between Africa as well as the United Arab Emirates is going well. Time will tell how successful this would be and how mutually beneficial it would be for all parties involved. From Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, Mayawa Adegoke for Channels Television News.
And that's it on the program for today and for the week. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'm Layo Adegoke. Have a great weekend.